Welcome to the Dylan Experience. This is episode 24, and I've got a great guest for you. I'm really excited for you to meet this one. My next guest is a Navy veteran, entrepreneur, speaker, and host of the Premature Billionaire Show. The Premature Billionaire Show is a podcast and YouTube channel which is focused on empowering people from all walks of life to exceed their limitations and experience greatness through manifestation and action. His show is a product of many difficult things he's faced in his life and left him feeling like he had no control. Now, my guest strives to help people build their finances so they can be, so they don't become caught in similar situations feeling helpless. I'm excited for you to meet my guest, Tony Stevenson. Tony, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How about yourself? Thanks for having me on as well.
Doing awesome, man. So, Tony, there's a lot to you. You know, we haven't talked very much at all. So I'm really excited to kind of hear your story. So go ahead and just give me and give my listeners a good understanding of who you are, what you're about, and we'll get into your story after that.
Okay, got you. Well, Tony Stevenson, I'm originally from Raleigh, North Carolina, but I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina and Columbia, South Carolina. When my parents got divorced when I was 2, my mom moved back home to Columbia, South Carolina, and my dad is from Raleigh, North Carolina. And from there, you know, it was like the typical single mom, 2 or 3 jobs, you know, that whole thing. And I fell in love with playing sports. So I started playing basketball. And then as time went on, I just always was dealing with so much trauma around me that like I used to always just try to look for like a safe place. And I found that safe place in reading because it was like I could talk to somebody without actually having to communicate, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I got introduced to reading by one of my mentors, and it's funny because her son is my best friend, but she like became a mentor to me, and she introduced me to this thing called The Secret. And The Secret talks about the law of attraction and manifestation and all those things. And it's crazy because like if I could show you my notebook from like 10 years ago, it's crazy to think that I've checked off some of those things. And at the time, you know, I was living in a trailer. Like, you know, I was in the hood living in a trailer. Like I had no idea how I was going to manifest these things, but she introduced me to the law of attraction, and that gave me something else to believe in. Like, even if it was fake, it felt good enough for me to believe in it. And so that happened. And then when I was, when the recession hit, my mom moved back to South Carolina. I stayed in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then my senior year, I told her obviously my mom wanted to be there for my senior year of high school. And so she wanted me to move back to South Carolina. And I said, well, I'll move back to South Carolina if you get me in school with my best friend. So if me and my best friend can graduate together, I'll move back to South Carolina. So she made it happen. I got there just in time for like basketball season. But then when it came time for me to graduate, when I graduated, when it came time for me to go to school, because I wasn't considered in-state in South Carolina because I wasn't there that long, and most of my transcripts came from North Carolina, like I was considered out of state no matter where I went. So they upped the tuition on me. When I went to visit school, and I committed to going, not committed, but I said I was going to go to a certain school. I was going to go to University of South Carolina, Aiken, and they came back and was like, yo, you're not getting in-state, you know, rates, like you're getting out-of-state rates. So then that put a pause. You know, my mom was so excited for me to be going to college. So she was like, you know, maybe I should take out a loan. And I'm like, well, that don't make no sense because like I've been helping with your bills anyway. So that defeats the purpose. So I was like, you know, we'll just figure it out. And then I ended up joining the military. And I remember before I joined, like I just got such to a low point in my life, and I was just looking around and was like, yo, this is not the life that I was writing about, you know, however many years ago. And so like anybody else, I tried to go to the Air Force. If you're in any branch other than the Air Force, you tried the Air Force first. I don't care what you have a few people that went straight for their like, oh, I want to go to the Army, I want to be a Marine. Like you have a few.
I was the dumb one.
Like, so it's like, so I kept going and the guy was like, man, they never there, man. Why don't you come talk to me? And I was like, okay. So I went and talked to the guy. And like next thing you know, like 3 weeks later, I wasn't even in I didn't even get to do what do you call it? Right before you go to boot camp and like you learn the it's not MEPS. It's I don't know, it's called like
some kind of readiness kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. So anyway, I wasn't even in long enough to do that. And then, next thing you know, I was like off to the races, and I was in the Navy in boot camp in Chicago, well, Great Lakes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to something. And now I'm going to forget what it was. Like the beginning of your story, you recognized, you said the word trauma, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
How early did you recognize that you had had the impacts of trauma actually affect you?
Man, to be honest with you, it took me until like adult years. Like it took me probably I probably came to that realization probably like 2 or 3 years ago.
Really?
Yep,
And,
2 or 3 years ago, because it was so normal. It
right.
was normal, so I didn't have anybody telling me like, yo, like you saw your cousin get shot. That's not like normal. Like that's like it's a lot of things that happen that's just like a part of living where I live. So it like to me, what I had been exposed to, that was normalcy for me. That wasn't trauma to me.
Yeah.
It took me to become more aware to just realize like, yo, I was 10 years old. That's traumatic. No matter like if you're an adult or if you're 10, like it's a traumatic thing. So it took me probably I lied. I started realizing I got more serious about my mental health after my dad died in 2014.
Yeah.
That's when everything kind of came to the surface. So I'll say 2014 was when I really realized it. 2016, I didn't really get help until 2016 though.
Sure.
Do
you mind talking about your dad?
Yeah. So, crazy thing is, man, like me and my dad didn't really have a relationship growing up. And it took me to just realize who he was as a person. Like I had to stop looking at him as a dad, and I had to look at him to who he is as a person. And when I got old enough to realize that, me and his relationship became better. Because now I can understand him more, and I stopped holding him to a dad regard.
Sure.
I started, because it was like me putting him in that position or allowing him to hold that position affected my expectations of him.
How so?
Just because it was just like my dad, it was just like, the typical relationship you think of with your father. That just wasn't my dad. Like he wasn't around, and he wasn't not around because he didn't care about me and he didn't love me. My dad is just the type of person who just doesn't like authority or being tied down or having like any of that. Like even when he died, he was still single. Like he just could never be tied to just anything, and he just was a free spirit, and he just wanted to do what he wanted to do. And he had never hurt a soul. You meet him, people love him. But that's just his personality. And I was really just resenting him not being there for all those years. And that's another reason why I had to take him out of that dad, a positional authority in my life, because it wasn't serving me. Because it's like, well, you're supposed to be my dad, but like you wasn't there. Like my mom was working 2 and 3 jobs, and I was getting exposed to all type of stuff because I didn't have a 2-parent household, and my mom had to work a lot. So when I finally took him out of that position and just looked at him as like more like, I ain't gonna say like I don't know what I looked at him as, but I took that dad position from above his head so I can hear him better and have a better relationship with him, because that wasn't serving me, because he didn't technically do what a dad was supposed to do. So yeah.
Right. So my question is, when you started to actually do that process of kind of taking away the authority of or the position that he was supposed to hold, did you ever, I mean, how do you look at that now? How do you look at how his actions affected you? Like, is there still anger there? Like, are you more understanding of it? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I'm definitely way more understanding of it, because it actually was the best thing that ever happened to me, him not being there. Because I don't know if I would have this drive and ambitious hustle spirit that I have if he was there, and if my life was perfect, and if, so I'm okay with how things turned out. But as far as like with that, it was kind of like, it was just like, I was just looking for the best way to be happy about the situation.
Right.
You know, I was just looking, like, that's all I was looking for, like, whatever the case, whatever the situation was, I was looking for the best way, because it's like, he's still my dad. And it is what it is. Like, it happened,
Yeah.
it's
not
in
like
the
you can
past.
change it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't change it. But what I learned from it was the type of dad that I wanted to be, and the type of relationship that I wanted to have with my kids, and the feeling that I wanted to have with my kids. And me and my dad, we were starting to get there before he died. And that's kind of what hurt so bad, because it took a while for me to get there. Then it's like, okay, cool. Like, now we're in a healthy space to do this father-son thing in a sense. And then boom, he died.
Yeah. And that was, when we first connected, that seemed like, when that happened, that was kind of a moment of, I don't know if inspiration is the right word, but that was a moment where you were like, I want more control of my life to be able to be there. Because correct me if I'm wrong, you were in the Navy at the time, and you took like 3 days. Tell me about that.
Yeah, man. So it's crazy. So, and I also want to highlight this. This was another, and it was too much to put on Facebook, but another reason why it motivated me was because my dad, he was an alcoholic. So he didn't, so he used to do dialysis because he didn't have a kidney. So finally he got a kidney. And when he got the kidney, he was excited. But because I was just dealing with the stress and the anxiety of about to go on the underway in the Navy, that I told him I would see him when I would get back. Like, I didn't make it a big deal. Like, I could have went home to see him with his new kidney, but because I was going to be gone for 3 weeks, I needed to pack. I need to make sure all the bills was paid, and it was just so many things to get ready to go underway that I had to worry about. And I'm a 21, 22-year-old kid, and I'm in the military. Like, this is like real, like, there's real shit going on. Like, I'm
right.
Like, you go from and at the time I'm an E4 on the verge of making E5, so I got responsibilities.
Right.
So I had all that on my mind, that I couldn't for 1 second stop and say, hey, go see your dad. Like, go see your dad. Like, your dad got a new kidney. Like, go see him. And my responsibility in the Navy took over my responsibility as a son. And I didn't like that. So when my dad died, I knew something was wrong, because we're in the middle of the ocean, and my senior chief comes, that's an E8. He comes and wake me up, and me and him had a good relationship. Like, I was a supervisor for days or whatever I was doing at the time. But me and him had a good relationship. He used to always say, only come wake me up if you have to. Like, whatever else it is, like, we can talk about at the morning meeting. And so when he came and got me, that was a little alarming. And then when he told me my mom was on the phone, that was even more alarming, because we're in the middle of the ocean. You can't call the boat. Like it gotta be some real shit to call the boat from a landline to the boat. So, and I knew something was wrong, and I get on the phone, and even though her and my mom, my dad never talked bad about my mom never talked bad about my dad ever. Like, she used to always say, you'll see when you get older, but she never talked bad about her. But when she was crying, like, it wasn't like a normal cry, like, something bad had happened. She was like, yo, it's your dad, like, he died. And so, because we were in the middle of getting ready for deployment, we had a lot of testing and qualifications that we had to get before we could leave. And so one of the I only been out the Navy for like 2 years, and I'm like forgetting all the terminology. But
right.
Anyway,
most people won't even know what it means.
Yeah, that's true too. So one of the tests we had to pass, I had to be there because I was the supervisor who was like kind of in charge of the whole thing. And so, they kind of let me off the hook with that and said I didn't have to come, but at the same time, they didn't help me get home either. It's like, yo, like, y'all have me on this boat, and y'all telling me like, oh, like, it's no planes coming. It's like, and it kind of hurt me, because I felt like my chain of command, I was so loyal to my chain of command. Like, me and my chain of command had a good relationship. Like, they did for me and I did for them. Like, everything I did, they got to put on their evaluation or whatever. So It was a good relationship. And I had did stuff for them like outside of like just volunteering for different stuff. And I felt like the one time they were supposed to like take care of me, they didn't. And it's just like yo, y'all really gonna tell me like y'all have like y'all know my dad just died. Y'all know I'm the only child. Like I'm his only. I'm like literally like everybody is waiting on me because they can't have the funeral without me. And that right there, it just because it was like, what if that was my son's, graduation, or what if that was my daughter's first play, or what if that was so. Everything led up to me saying, I don't want to do the military anymore. And man, when I joined the military, bro, I thought I was gonna do 30, like
Yeah.
out the gate. And then I started realizing, like, man, the lifestyle, like I love the Navy. Like I love everything it taught me. I love everything about it. It's the lifestyle that comes with the Navy that I just can't agree with. Maybe if I was in the Air Force and I got to stay in one spot for 20 years,
yeah,
I would have stayed. But no, man, like, and my job was ordnance. So I had to, like, I'm not building bombs stateside. Like, we got to go drop those over there. So like the job I had was just, I started writing on the wall, like, yo, you're going to be gone, my friend. Like, that's all there is to it. So, so that's how that whole situation played out. And then I finally got home, and then we had a funeral.
Yeah. And what, and we could have so many conversations about what you just said with how the military is in general.
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep this in terms of you.
Mm-hmm.
What happened after that brought you to where you are now? You've built, obviously, the Premature Billionaire brand, the show, obviously. Tell me about some of that stuff.
Man, so what happened after that, I didn't really process it. It felt fake for a long time. Like, it's still it doesn't not feel fake, and it doesn't not feel real, but I've come to terms with it at this point that he's not here. But when it first happened, it felt fake. And but I knew right then and there, like, that was like my blessing in disguise. It was like, all right, I gotta figure something out. So from there, crazy, this story it doesn't get crazy, but it's gonna be good for your listeners. Just the importance of just wanting to achieve more. So from there, I went and got a book, and this book changed my life. I was already a reader, but this one specific book changed everything for me, and I forgot to bring it out. And it's called the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. So when that happened, I was like, okay, cool. What is the next thing I could do that I would like to make income without being in the military? And I was like, yo, real estate. I always grew up watching HGTV because where I lived at, I got to watch in a TV somewhere I could manifest and I could dream and I could see myself, right? So I used to always watch HGTV, and specifically, I used to watch Bravo $1 Million Listing. So I used to always watch the $1 Million Listing, Los Angeles, Miami, all of that. So I used to just watch those things. So I was like, okay, let me get into real estate and let me get a real estate investor book, because that's like the first thing I resort to when I want to learn something is a book. So in that book, it had quotes from different investors, and one of the investors, it had the quote and it had the city. One of the investors was out of Virginia Beach, and I was stationed in Norfolk. So for those who don't know, Virginia Beach is only like 20 minutes away from Norfolk. So I'm like, oh, so I Facebooked them, I looked them up, and I said, hey man, like, I'm gonna have to find it. But I said, hey, my name's Tony. I'm in the military. I'm looking to get out. I'm looking to, start my career as a real estate investor. I read this book. Can we meet for coffee? The little cheesy line or whatever. And he was like, go to this place, and he sent me to my first real estate investment. It's called a RIA, a real estate investment investors club. It's like where everybody in the city goes and they network, and they, who's the closing attorney, who's the realtor, all of that. So he sent me there, and that literally changed my life for like the rest of my life. And that's when the entrepreneur bug really just jumped on me. And then the brand started. So I was heavy in real estate before I even created this brand. And the brand really started because I put it as a caption on the picture, and like the picture went crazy. Like the comments on it was like, oh my God, it's like Premature Billionaire. Like, oh, like, and that was it. And after that, I was like, man, I think I got something. And so I called my attorney and had them trademark it ASAP. So got the trademark. And after that, I was just like, I was already speaking. So it was like everything that I was about basically just personal development, improving yourself, so that was just like that was always the underlying message for myself. That was always just the underlying message, was like always to just be getting better, working on yourself, trying to achieve new goals. So from there, I just made it. And now, like, because I understand investing, and because I do credit repair, because I do business funding and development, because I do all those things, I wanted it to make it an affordable way for people. I wanted to be the me that I needed growing up, almost, in a sense, So I wanted to, I just made courses around it, made a brand around it. And and I'm really just starting to grow it, man. This is my first year. I said this year I was gonna start taking it serious because I feel like the message behind it can help a lot of people. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Sounds awfully familiar to myself even. So I can absolutely understand that. Now, yeah. I'm curious with, with how you see yourself now, like throughout your past and your history, and looking at yourself, what were the things that you look back to and recognize this was something that was fundamentally important for me to see early on? Obviously you talked a little bit about, you saw your dad, right? You saw that. Now, looking back at yourself, right? Specifically, what were those moments or those things that you recognized about yourself that you needed to kind of reveal to yourself?
I would say my anger.
Sure.
I would say my anger. That was like a big thing that I had to come to terms with. And that's really when the mental health conversation started to happen.
Yeah.
Because after my dad died, because you got to think, like, I had no time to process it. He died October 2014. February, March 2015, I went on a 10-month deployment.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like I'm dealing. And then another thing I tell people, man, that used to like really scare me, that it motivated me, was I remember the feeling at my dad's funeral, and it was like I had never felt, like, I come from a big family. Like, I had never felt my family feel shaken. Like, that's like the first time, like, I feel like I realized, like, yo, this is affecting a lot of people. Like, a lot of people were impacted by this. And then, just watching my grandma was like my heart. And just watching her bury my dad, like, you never want to watch, a parent should never have to bury their child.
Yeah.
And so I just remember that feeling. And I remember when it was time for me to see my dad one last time, I remember my mom, I didn't even realize I was falling. Like, I was just so, it just happened so fast. I was just so weak, and I was just crying so bad that I remember my mom grabbing me before realizing I was even falling. Like, so it was like that whole thing. So it's like when I'm on deployment, we're coming through the, I don't even know everybody know about the Suez Canal. I could talk about that. So we're coming through there, and because my job is ordnance, I work with weapons. So we're all on the 50 cals, and I'm watching these guys and ride next to the boat on the land with, like, it's literally like a movie, man. They got the ski masks on, and they got they riding in the truck with the gun on the back, and and they got guns, and I'm looking, and it's like, and of course, everybody is like, yo, don't go to condition 1 or whatever. Everybody like, yo, do not put it around in the chamber. Like, we are here to just show them that we will shoot back, but like, we don't want anything to happen. And I remember feeling like, man, these guys don't play by rules over here, though. Like, we have to follow these rules, but they don't. And I just remember, like, man, if I died over here, like, I don't know if my family could take that, because and this isn't to like dim the light on my dad, but I'm way more important to the family than he was, because my dad was kind of like a loner. Like, I'm involved.
You were there.
Yeah, I was there. I was there. And it was just like, I remember that feeling at the time, like, man, my family wouldn't be able to handle this. Like, I don't know how my family would come back from this. And that's when it was just like, yeah, this isn't worth it for me anymore. And then following that, I just was having like I was just angry, because I felt like my chain of command didn't take care of me the way they should have. I was angry because I didn't I was angry at myself because I let this job not allow me to see him one more time when I could have saw him, but I like, you know, so I was just angry at everything, and got into a couple fights. And I was always a good sailor, so they didn't want to kick me out. So they like, we need to send them that, like, we need to get them help. If you need help, we need to get them help. And so that started, but I didn't stick with it. I didn't stick with it then. But then I think probably like 2016, 2017, that's kind of when I started realizing like, yo, this kind of affects my personal life, and it affects a lot more other than just my job in the Navy. So that's kind of what happened after that.
What was that like? You know, obviously we're a couple of big strapping dudes like that, you know, just want to get shit done.
Right.
What was it like for you in 2016, you know, even before then or after then, that you're starting to actually recognize feelings, right? And recognize the importance of talking about things like trauma and grief and loss. And what was that like for you?
It was hard. It's still hard now. Like it's just a hard thing to talk about. So in 2016, a lot of things changed. I was best friends with somebody who I thought would be, you know, the godfather of my kids at my wedding, best man at my wedding, my pallbearer at my funeral. And me and him, we had a falling out, and that changed. And then I just started getting rid of people. I started getting rid of everything that didn't really, I just wanted different. So I started acting like I wanted different. Like I stopped doing the things that I used to do. Like I made a complete 360. And I just took it serious because I wanted to get out the Navy so bad that I'm like, yo, this, like, I have to do this. Like I have to focus and I have to figure this out because I can't go back in the Navy. So I still ended up re-enlisting on deployment just because the tax-free bonus, because we was in the Middle East. And then it gave me an extra 4 years to figure out how was I gonna plan my exit, you know? So in 2016, you know, when it really just took a toll on me because it's like, oh, that was something else that happened in 2016. So 2016, I actually requested captain's mass because I felt, so captain's mass is basically like when you request, like anytime you get in trouble in the Army, like you have some type of disciplinary board or whatever, and you got to meet the CEO of the command or whatever. So I requested to meet the CEO of my boat because I felt like I was being discriminated against on my eval, and that was like a big thing, and that was a huge thing because like at the time, you know, that's such a sensitive topic, and I didn't even want to even go through with it until one of my guys, because everybody knows, everybody knows the supervisor who doesn't let their rank affect their work, and I was the supervisor that, like, no, either like I will do it, you could get out the way, but like everybody who's down here, everybody's gonna be working, because if everybody worked, we could go home faster, like, you know. So I was just a supervisor that was always working, and I had all the accolades that you could think of, man. Like literally I had all the accolades you could think of. And I remember one of my guys, when they found out what I got on my evaluation, they said, damn, if they did that to you, I can only imagine what they're gonna do to me. And that was like the click that was like, damn, I gotta actually go fight this now, because I didn't care. I was like, man, I don't care. I'm leaving. I'm getting out. Like I got my plan. Like I don't need this. But then when my guy said that, I said, oh wow, because my entire Navy career, especially as a supervisor, everybody has always looked at me to take care of them. Like I always, like, you know, you always take care of your people, and I always took care of my people, and they also respected me because how hard I worked. So because they knew how hard I worked, when they saw I got the evaluation I got, they was like, well, damn, like I don't even have half the things you have, and they gave you that. I can only imagine what they're gonna give me. And so I end up doing the paperwork on it, fighting that. I seen one of the things that I don't like about the military is that we dehumanize everything. It's like I had a guy who tried to kill himself on deployment because his wife took all his money. And like this should be a good enough environment for him to feel like he has somebody he could talk to, like about that, because that is a serious matter, instead of feeling like, oh, well, if it's not about the mission, or if like whatever, like, you can't come talk to anybody about it. So
Right.
we just dehumanize a lot of things. And basically, 2016 was when like I kind of just started coming to terms with kind of like everything. And then I fought that and I ended up winning. Like literally, like, and they kept asking, and my chain of command kept trying to scare me out of it. And I'm like, no, like, it literally makes no sense. Like, I'm not even trying to pull this race card, but please. And they even called me arrogant and cocky. Like, that was like the thing going around, because I was like, I was fighting for like my life. I felt like, I was like, yo, look at what I have and put me up against anybody else and tell me, where do I fall? Like, that's all I'm asking for, a fair shake. Like, just because I know what everybody else has, because I'm competing with my peers. So I know what everybody else has because I'm competing. So I'm like, so long story short, it ended up getting all the way up to the CO. It went like, man, it had to go through so many different levels. Like, EO got involved, equal opportunity got involved, everybody got involved. And I'm like, look, I'm really not even trying to make this a big thing. I just want what I worked so hard for. And I feel like I'm not getting a fair shake. And I don't know what other reason I'm not getting a fair shake, outside of me being Black and me not also like I take up for my guys. It's like, in meetings, supervisor meetings, I'll be like, no, like, that's like, no, like, why would you intentionally do that to that person, and that's going to affect them?
Yeah.
Because you have the power to do it. So I was the guy that was like, I guess I was like the Red Robin of whatever. So I didn't get along the best with my new chain of command, who actually, so all that happened. And then it was just like, man, it was just like so much on me, from like dealing, not facing the fact my dad died in 2015, now dealing with this in 2016. And it was a lot, man. So it just made me kind of just want to start taking it a little bit better, because I felt it was starting to physically affect me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just want to say it's incredible to see, like, leaving the race card out of it, because that's something that we can certainly talk about. Just seeing a man at your age and younger, looking at what you've had to look at and where you've come. I mean, that's incredible, right?
Yeah, I appreciate it.
To actually be able to physically deal with these feelings and understand, and being self-aware enough to understand that you need to talk about these things, you need to figure these things out, and through all the stuff that you've been through. And that's just not even including the race card, because that's just another level,
right.
And I'm curious, like, how do you feel about the race situation right now? And I don't mean to get any kind of political. This is
You're
like,
right.
let's focus this strictly on like your mental health, how it's impacted you. Like, help me understand what you've been through, because I'm a white man in America, and I get all the things that privilege gets me, right? Like, what do you think about that?
One thing that I've always said about race, like, well, racism, is that it's a learned behavior. Because if you take a 3-year-old kid, 3-year-old kids, one white, one Black, you put them in the playpen together, they're going to play. They're going to be kids. They're going to play. They're not going to look at each other and say, oh, he's white, I can't play with him, or he's Black, I can't play. They're not. So first of all, it's a learned behavior.
Yep.
Like, to be racist, you have to choose to be racist. Like, you have to, like, that's a choice, and as far as everything else goes, it's just, I'm glad it's getting talked about more, because at the end of the day, take race away. And that's what helped me as a supervisor in the military, was I didn't care about race. I want whoever's getting the job done. That's all I care about. Who's getting the job done? I don't care. You could be gay. I don't care. You could, whatever you do. I want whoever's gonna get the job done. That's it. That's all I care about. Everything else, because I wasn't raised like that either way. Like, I wasn't raised like that at all. So I'm glad it's getting talked about. And it's also just kind of crazy to think about the system, like the systematic racism piece of it. Like, man, you got to think about it. People intentionally did these things, like put redlining, they intentionally did these things to keep Black people poor and uneducated. Like, and that's scary to think about, that because it's something you don't catch. It's not like, it's something you have to understand.
You got to dig to find
Yeah, you
that.
got to dig.
Yeah.
You really got to dig to find that out. And then that was something else, man, that was really hard on me dealing with that in the Navy, man, because so many people, True Colors came out. And I remember I was talking to a girl, and who died? It was a Trayvon Martin situation. And I remember talking to her, and every time, I feel like I'm a pretty logical person. I'm emotional because I'm passionate, but I could be logical.
Right.
And I asked the girl, and I said, so you're telling me that was supposed to that issue was supposed to result in a death? Like, that's what you're telling me. You're telling me he should have died. Like, death was the solution to that problem. There's no way you can tell me. And that's what I said, if that was your little brother, you're telling me you would be okay if that man killed your little brother with no real cause. Yeah. You're telling me, so it's just like that. Those were the conversations, and that was heavy on me, because in the Navy, you're on a boat and you surrounded by a whole bunch of people, and you can't go you can't go blow off steam. You can't, you're right there. So that was really tough as well, because it was like you kind of got, you thought people were a certain type of a person, and then when you hear their perspective on race, it's just like, wow, I would have never guessed that. I actually, crazy quick story, I actually served with a guy who got kicked out the Navy he got pissy drunk. We was in Dubai, and we come back, and everybody know I kind of got a somewhat of a bad temper, and I go to walk in where we sleep at in the berthing, and they stop me yo, you can't, no, you can't go in there. You definitely can't go in there. And I'm like, man, if y'all don't move, I'm trying to take a shower and get in my rack and watch movies. They're like, nah. So I go in, and all I hear is N-word, N-word. Do you know your dad? I bet you don't know your effing dad. N-word, N-word. Just going crazy. And it's from a guy who, that never came up for that. So I was I laughed when I first, because it was just so ignorant that it's you can't even be you're watching, that's he's making an ass out of himself right now. That, and so they actually end up kicking him out the Navy for that.
Wow.
Good. It was, they definitely, I was actually surprised that they took it as serious as they did, to be honest. But I think also because he had made such a big show about it, and so many people that saw it, they was interviewing everybody. It was bad, but it was good to see they took that serious, because it's very rare that even occurs in the Navy, in the military on that level. So
right. Yeah, I mean, the military in general is such a contradiction sometimes. With my own experience, I see, I went to basic training with Black guys, Hispanics, Asians, every single kind of person I could think of, and we all work together, right? We all equally sucked, and we're all trying to figure shit out together, just trying to get stuff done. And you see personality come out, and it's well, you're not going to help with anything, and you're not going to help with anything, so don't go to these people. And then, and that's everybody, right? There's white guys that do nothing, there's Black guys that do nothing, there's Asians that do nothing. You get enough people in, because
people are people.
People are people, absolutely. And at the same time, you also see that elevating. You see leadership that will choose to be who they are, right? People will be people. And I've seen it all. I've seen Black guys that are great leaders, and I see Black guys that are shit leaders. I see a lot of white guys that are shit leaders too, right?
I feel like my greatest leader in the Navy was a white guy.
Yeah,
this is my senior. His name James Stafford. He's from Ohio. I just he just has a no nonsense. He has my personality, his personality match, because we don't care about all the other, who's working, who's gonna put in the work, who's gonna make my life easier. That's all I care about. I don't care who wears a dress outside of work. I don't care who I care nothing about that. When we get here, and I I really got my work ethic from. I really attribute a lot of my success to that chain of command that he was a part of, because they allow my work ethic to really carry me. But I say that, but then people are lazy too, though. Like,
Yeah.
you know, people are lazy, but you know, I definitely got rewarded for my work, and I definitely got to see how leadership worked, like a do it first leader. That's what I got to see, like a real do it first leader, somebody you could trust. And he, like I said, he was white. So like I said, I experienced a lot of different things, and like I said, people are people. Like, it doesn't even matter what it is. Sometimes the military just exposes it a little bit more because it's so
Yeah, I mean, I think the right situations you'll see. I think when people are put under pressure, you really see who they become
every time.
And yeah, I think the military does a really good job at revealing that. Do they do a good job at, you know, solving that problem when they reveal that it's a problem? Not always.
No, definitely not.
You know, it's nice to hear that it does happen, right? There is success stories like the one that happened to you, but yeah, I mean, the hard part is the military can just be a good concept on paper, you
right?
know, but does not follow through. And a lot of times it's like, you know, if this person's a leader, it's who's above them, and that kind of reveals in itself, like a lot of times there's systematic blind spots to where people get away with things that you shouldn't be able to get away with them. And simply by the fact that there are people willing to protect the good old boys or the friends, or, you know, the people that, you know, I could never see him doing that kind of thing.
Right.
Like it's bullshit, you know, like, and in many regards, it seems as if like people think that punishment is too harsh, and yet at the same time, those are the same people that think like discipline, you know, the what do you call it, like the barracks discipline kind of stuff is not, you know, and
right.
It's so very contradictory. And I'm still in the military. I'm Wisconsin National Guard, Army. It's tough to watch sometimes because there's people that, you know, get a reputation for defending people like yourself. Like people like you defend both yourself and for others.
Right.
Yet you get a reputation that cannot be undone in the good old boy system. And I think the Army has actually gotten rid of that in many regards with how they do evals now, but it's still you know, one of the things that I wish the military in general would come forth with is not just doing evals on subordinates, but doing evals on supervisors. Because if like, why should 3 people, you know, and I work in fire teams, so why should 3 people look to a team leader that fundamentally doesn't know how to do his job and is a racist, is a, you know, whatever other bad word, right, of kind of person? Why should their evals be focused on this guy's judgment when this guy's judgment, if revealed, could be said, you've got a fucking problem, dude. Like, no, we're gonna reevaluate these people with the next highest chain of command because this guy's his input
he's not really competent.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think the military has to get away from, of the seniority. Yo, I don't care that you've been in the Navy 10 years longer than me. That doesn't mean you're a better leader than me. That doesn't mean you can execute better than me. That literally means nothing. Like, right. But because you gotta kind of do that and put them in a position, and you try to, and it's like, man, if I'm a high school coach and I have a freshman guard that's playing in my senior guard, try and guess who's playing? The freshman. Who's ever getting the job done, that's who's gonna play. And you know, with the military, I think one of the things, and I want to figure out how to do this somehow, but I want to come back and teach leadership to the military, because there's no real leadership training in the military outside of when you make rank and they make you go to class to tell you the new responsibilities of your new rank.
Is that really leadership though? Like, I mean, the Army has the same thing. We have WLC, ALC, SLC, all 3 classes to me were the same thing. And I didn't learn leadership. I didn't learn how to sit with people, and for me, I am the same way. I add a lot of mental health aspect to my leadership because of what I've been through. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm far more patient than most leaders. So
Mm-hmm.
I sit with my soldiers. I understand my soldiers. I talk to my soldiers. I make
Mm-hmm.
sure that my soldiers know that they can come up to me and tell me what I'm doing wrong
Mm-hmm.
so that I can fix it and do what's right for them, because I have to. Like, if I can't understand what I'm doing wrong, then eventually it's going to create a bigger problem to the point of people don't know how to actually talk to me. So my number one thing for leadership is communication. If you can't communicate with me, I'm not leading you, right? Like, that's just fundamental. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've got to be able to look at my soldiers or whoever, because I've led airmen as well, like, and tell them, like, I'm fallible, right? Like, I can
Right.
fuck up. I fuck up a
Right.
lot because I have a
Right.
shitty memory, and I make dumb choices sometimes.
Right.
And so if I ever do that, I need you to make sure, and I'm going to do this with my actions. I need you to know that I'm not going to respond to you harshly just because you're telling me I'm doing something wrong. But
Mm-hmm.
I do hopefully expect some respect, because I'm
Right.
also giving you, I'm giving you the ability to have a conversation with me on anything, right? And
Right.
so I'm giving you the respect of the human that you are, and I hope that you give me the respect the human I am. That you don't treat me
Mm-hmm.
like a shitbird just because I made a mistake. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, question me in a respectful manner, and I'll treat you with a respectful manner. I think that's so important. And what you're talking about, I just don't. You're right. I don't think it's there. I don't think it exists.
It's not, because I think it doesn't exist because of of the type of leader that you're saying you are.
Yeah.
Most people don't want that feedback. It's like
Right.
my way or the highway. It's like, I was given this position to make these decisions, and obviously they gave me this position because they trust me. So whatever decision I make, that's what we're going with. And no, I don't want feedback. And if they understood, so one of the things that I do in my company is that I make sure everybody has a voice. I make sure everybody understands, like, yes, you work for me, but this is a partnership. Like, because my success is dependent on you.
Yep.
So I like to put everybody on the same playing field, because who really wants to grow up thinking like having somebody over them, like, because
Right.
you naturally are putting them in a less important position
Right.
already. Like, and that, imagine what that does to the mental health. Like, what does that do to your psyche over time? So I always want to make sure that everybody knows, like, hey, look, I'm the boss here, but we are a team. Like, everybody has to do their part here, and I don't think in the military they're ready for those conversations, because some of them, just they got picked on in high school, and now they're E7 in the military, and now they got power, and now people have to listen to them, and so it's so many things you can unpack there. But the leadership, it has to change, though. It really does, and I would like to be a part of that change somehow one day.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a difficult topic, because what the definition of leadership is to people is different, right? Like, you and
Mm-hmm.
I seem to have a very similar definition of leadership, but to other people it's literally like mission first. And that's,
Right.
especially for the last 2 decades with Afghanistan, Iraq,
Mm-hmm.
that's understandably necessary in a time of war.
Mm-hmm.
But a majority of the problems that have happened have been at home, right? You look at the bad things that have happened. Like, my unit lost 4 guys to suicide in 2020.
Sheesh.
We deployed to Afghanistan in 2019, came home in December, and then from that point on, and within a year and a half, we had 4 guys die and 1 guy die of a firearms related accident. So we don't know, but obviously there were problems. But like, how does the military respond to that? Well, there wasn't, we had a suicide symposium to where
They love to do that. And it's
right.
like, okay, cool. We talked about it.
Yeah, we
Like,
talked about it, and realistically, we've heard, I haven't heard anything, right? Like I haven't heard anything about what the unit has planned to do. I've seen certain things take shape, and things move in different directions, but is it enough? I don't know. I know there's a whole lot of people that have a whole lot of resentment for the people who did wrong, but then retired and got out of the problems or any kind of consequences. And it's like, how is, the military talks about retention like it's the only thing that matters. And how
they aren't doing a good job at doing
it. Right. Like, how are you supposed to retain people when you have situations like this where people did things that weren't outright problems, but was kind of the source of all the toxicity.
Right.
And nothing happens to them. Right. It's a hard thing to discuss. It's a hard thing to like look at for people. But everybody sees it. And so if you just brush it under the rug, it's remembered. And I think the military just doesn't have a good perspective on what that means for the long run of the military.
Yeah, because they struggle with really caring, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like they just struggle, like, because it's like, hey man, like what, like one of the things they told us, like, hey man, we over here to put warheads on foreheads. And that's some people's really motto. Like they dehumanize everything. It's like, yo, warheads on foreheads. Like that's it. Like that's all we care about. And it's like you're forgetting that the people that's working this machine, they have a life and they have feelings and they want to be heard and they want to be seen. And obviously I'm not saying that it has to be some kumbaya session once a week or whatever. But you just got to understand, like, man, the quality of work depends on the quality of the morale.
Absolutely.
Like that's it. Like anytime I tell my guys, this is all we have to do, and you guys could be home by 12. Man, do you know the type of work I get? Top tier A1 work.
Yep.
If I tell them, hey man, knock this out, but we still, no matter how early y'all get done, we still got to stay here until 1600. That quality of work is trash.
Yeah.
It's terrible. But the morale of having them say, hey, you're gonna get off early. Like, that morale booster is like, okay, cool. Like now they got a little pep in their step, but it's like, you got to understand that. You got to understand, and that's why I say, like, the military has to work on that, because it really affects people, especially when you transition out, and just even in your personal life, because you start taking on this learned behavior, and you start this perception of what the world is, because you're doing the military thing 24/7, starts to become like the real reality for you. And now you take that home to your wife, then you take that on to your kids, and now the same issues you have at work are the same issues you have at home now. So,
yeah,
it's a lot.
While you were talking about that, like what comes to mind for me is leadership is a negotiation. It isn't a demand.
Yeah.
Right? Because like when you come out and you say, you guys, if we get this work done, we can go home by 12. Awesome. Right. Everybody's super, super motivated. And then the next day you're like, guys, I've got a hard job coming up and I need 2 or 3 people to stay a couple extra hours. Are they going to look back at yesterday and see you let us out at 12 because you knew you could? Or are you the leader that kept them until 1600, even though they could have been done at 12, and that negotiation ability to say, I'm here, you're not just doing it just to use it as negotiation, but in a way it's their own negotiation, right? If you're a good leader, people negotiate on how to make you, help you, rather than you negotiating with them as to how to help you. Right? The negotiation becomes in their mind, because they're like, oh man, Sergeant Sessler asked me to do this and I don't want to, but he's always been there for me.
Yep.
Or is it, hey John, like, can you help me out here? It's like, no, when was the last time you helped me out?
Right.
Right? Like
Yep.
when you develop that care, right? And it is such a hard topic in the military because you're trying to, obviously dehumanize people so you can kill them, right? Put warheads on foreheads means something.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to focus on the mission when it's war, you have to, but
Yep.
we're not always at fucking war,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the hard part. When we're training, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
not war. That's still training. And so
Mm-hmm.
when shit goes down, like your dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not war,
Right.
right? Like that's as hard as it may be to get a helicopter or a plane out to get you, like make it fucking happen. It's
Yeah, especially when we're not even in country. Like it's like
right.
we were off the like we were still stateside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know, man. And it's just like one of the driving pieces behind my brand is I just always want to be the person that I needed growing up. That's just always the motivating thing behind it, because it's like, man, I've been through some shit. And if I just had one person here to kind of that would have made it a little bit easier,
Right.
man. Like I would have really appreciated that. So like with the brand, like I just even try to be I take that same thing. I go speak to kids at school, and I let them know, like, hey, like I could show you emails where I make the kids say affirmations, and I teach them about the law of attraction. And I remember I went and spoke to this one school, and the girl had been missing school because she has to work, or like she'll be tired, or like whatever the case she would like, whatever the case was, right? And instead of me condemning her about it, I uplifted her and I said, hey, you know what? Like you don't even understand the work, like the work habits that you're developing right now. But man, if you could just get through high school, if you could really just get through high school, and then you could fully focus on just working, man, what you could do.
Right.
But you just got to get through high school first. Man, the lady said that she wrote, I got the email, and the lady said that she wrote down as like her goals or affirmations that she would come to school every day.
That's awesome,
Like
man.
I didn't take that information and say, oh, like you missing school, like you should stay in school and you should no. Like I had to give it to her different. And that's one of the things I love about the military, because the military taught me how to run a business easily.
Yeah.
Like it taught me, it's like I got a crash course on how to run a business without even knowing I was getting a crash course on how to run a business, because it made me understand people, it made me understand systems and processes, it made me understand all those things. And along my journey of just wanting to get better, I will always be reading John Maxwell books on leadership. Always reading John Maxwell books on leadership. And so, I just take that same, if I can help you, I'm gonna help you. If I could be that person, that one person that you needed to kind of make your life a little easier, I'm gonna be that person for you. And that's kind of, I got that from just like everything I went through. Like, man, I wanted to be the supervisor. Like I had a couple good like direct supervisors. Like my E5s, I had some real good E5s. I had some real shitty ones too. And so I remember saying, when I become an E5, this is the type of E5 I'm gonna be. Because I don't know how it works in the Army, but in the Navy, like E5 is like, all right, you're starting to arrive, you're starting to get more responsibilities. And so when that happened, it was just like I wanted to do everything opposite of what I hated.
Yeah.
Because and one of the biggest things I used to hate so bad was I'm not gonna say hate, I didn't like, was the way you talk to people in the military based on your rank. Like, I'm a man, you're a man. Like, respect should be given regardless of rank, anything. Like, first things out the gate, respect should be given, no matter what your rank is, no matter where you from. Like, respect should be given. Like, respect goes both ways.
I hope people are listening right now. Fuck, man.
For real, man. It just
go for it, man.
it just goes both ways. And I always understood that, because growing up as a man, I just always, like, my mom was just like, my family just big on respect. And that's why disrespect is just like, it just turns us to a different person, because it's like, yo, like, I'm not like, if anybody, I'm gonna give you the respect before you give it to me, but don't disrespect me.
Right.
And that was one of the things that in the military I just saw, and it would be like, and I literally I literally got into fights with people because of the way they were talking to me.
Yeah,
Like, that's my biggest thing. Do not, like, listen, man, if I mess up, hey, I play sports, so hey, go ahead, let me have it. I messed up. But like in a just a conversational, or if you're upset about something, or if there's a misunderstanding, like, with all due respect, sir, like the tone of your voice, I'm not sure if you would talk to me like that if you had on civilian clothes and we weren't on base.
right.
So don't put on this uniform and take on this position, and now all of a sudden, like, you're this big bad guy. Like don't do that. And like I said, that was part of the reason why I got into fights that I got, because I had to, like, it was just like don't forget, you can,
because
something can happen. Like,
because in the military, well, I shouldn't even say in the military, this is all over the place, because respect is earned, not given, became such a motto in
right.
in the past. I don't even know where that came from, but respect is earned, not given was such a mind-blowing experience to really look at that and see how terrible the implications of that are, right? Because there are people that are willing to use that and say, you are a piece of shit, and I'm not going to give you any respect until you earn it with me. And that just fundamentally does not work with human beings, because that creates, in many ways, it creates codependency. It creates, it does not create confidence. And it's certainly, if you don't have confidence, it's harder to build competence. Right. And so you're building all of the negative feedback loops to control people, but not to create fundamentally caring and empathetic societies that are protecting and safe. And so it's remarkable, one, that we met off of a Facebook
I know,
group,
right?
and we have such similar, like the respect is given, not earned mentality that you and I share. I fucking love this, because
it's crazy. The stars align.
Yeah, I mean, like, you want to talk about law of attraction? Well, it fucking feels like it right now,
right?
Because I mean, like, I'm a white dude in fucking the Army National Guard. You're a black dude that was in the Navy, and we both have this feeling and this understanding of people. And it's, you look at our stories, and I don't think you really know that much about my story, do you?
No, I don't.
Yeah. So understand this. I lost my dad to suicide at 6 years old, and that's where all of my stuff started. Right. Okay. I have the same mentality as you, as I want to help people in the ways that I never had. Right. I had a single mom growing up, and I had a sister. Both of them fundamentally kept me alive, but I wouldn't talk to them. Right. So I wouldn't have any I wouldn't communicate with people. And I lived with the guilt and the shame of, I felt the day that my dad left, I knew he wasn't coming home, but I was 6 years old and I didn't know how to express that. I told him not to leave. I watched him walk out of my life, and I felt guilty and shameful for that, because I didn't stop him. Right. Even though I couldn't, I was 4 foot nothing.
You're 6 years old.
He's 6'7". I'm 4 foot nothing. He picked me up by the head and just dropped me. Right.
Yeah.
But I took that guilt and that shame, and I locked it up inside of me, and I didn't tell anybody, because I didn't want to be judged by my mom or my sister or my family as to what I actually felt and what I saw. And I lived with that. I was bullied in high school. I was abused by the next man in my life. And all of that just taught me, to lock things away, understand that life is going to be painful, and just fucking deal with it. And so, but what I didn't tell people for the longest time is, like, I thought about suicide every single day of my life from 6 years old on, right? Whether it was my dad's or my own. And so when I joined the military, I joined to die, right? That was my goal. It was my fundamental goal. Joining the military was, I wanted to die. I told people I joined because of 9/11, but that wasn't the real reason. Yeah. And so I lived with that. I went on my first deployment, saw all sorts of shit in Afghanistan, my first deployment, and then came home, and it was just change. It was just like that huge change. Like, I'm sure coming back to the civilian world for the first time, you're like, what the fuck is this? Seeing all the choices, just being overwhelmed by everything. I had PTSD, and it's, whether it's something that goes away or not, like, I don't think I have it to the level that I did before. I feel normal. I feel comfortable with who I am. I don't feel like I'm triggered on any front. So whether that's a healing story or not, I don't know. That's for other people to decide, not me. I was never diagnosed with PTSD because I wouldn't go to the VA. I wouldn't go to mental health. And in 2015, after 3 ACL surgeries, 2 reconstructions, again, still in the military, just went through sniper school last year. I decided to kill myself, and I obviously didn't, but that moment was a huge moment of transformation for me. And that's where like all of this started, where you actually know me, is now I'm sitting here as a man talking about mental health, talking about like feelings and emotions and trauma and all this shit that we always thought were feminine, you know, when we were growing up, because that's what we were taught. You know, I'm undoing all of that damage. You know, the things like respect is earned, not given. I'm talking about that stuff because I disagree, you know, and I'll be aggressive about it if I have to. I'll share what I need to share. And I want to connect with guys like you that have the ability to say, yeah, this isn't fucking right. You know, and have conversations about race, have conversations about, you know, gender and sex. And I want to have these conversations that fundamentally don't work for humanity, so that we can start making a better fucking society for kids like me in the future, you know, and kids like you in the future.
And the thing about what you're saying is so important, but it's also the hard part is talking about it.
Right.
Like that's like one of the things. It's like, man, when I make a post about my mental health, it's like I almost regret it, but I do it because I want people to know, like, look, my life isn't perfect. I deal with shit too. But then when I do it, everybody wants to DM me and talk about it. And it's like, yo, but I ain't really say this for y'all to like, I don't really want to have a conversation about it. I just needed to get it off. But like, I don't really want to talk about it. And like the biggest thing is, like when people ask like, well, how do you deal with this? And it's like, man, I have the most unhealthy ways ever of coping with my situations. Like, I don't want to give you any like, I really deal with this stuff. Like, I don't want to I can't even really give you any real advice because it's like the way I deal with it is still unhealthy. And like, I got to get to a better healthy spot of dealing with it, you know, like it's just, so it's so important to talk about, and it's so important to get out. Because I seen something the other day talking about Black gay men, on how like they feel like the smallest on earth because they feel like
I can imagine
they can't talk, because it's like being a Black man, you already are deemed like aggressive, like the world, and that's why it's okay for like the police to shoot us, because we already have the stigma behind us of being aggressors. So naturally, you're a Black man, you take on this, but then because you're gay, you can't even really express yourself, because just because you're gay doesn't mean you're going through anything less than the next person. Like your sexual orientation, your skin color, your height, weight, so none of that matters. Life is going and happening to each and every one of us, and we all are taking that in so many different ways. So you're still a human, and like just getting it out is, I think, such an important thing. And like having somebody to talk to or listen to, like, you know, me and my best friends, we probably talk, like my best friend Tim, he was in the Navy with me. I met him in the Navy, man. We probably talk like 10, 20 times a day. Like, and it's like, man, we just talk. Like we just talk, and we hold each other accountable. Like, yo, like that ain't, like that wasn't cool. And he'll be like, yeah, you're right. Like, and then like vice versa. You know, we had that type of friendship where it's like, yo, like, hold, like, you know, if you love me, you know, hold me accountable. Like, don't let me off of that. Like, make sure you holding me accountable to be the best like human I could possibly be. And with the mental health thing, man, it's sad to say, man, rest in peace to Miss USA. She just killed herself, man. She's from Charlotte, North Carolina. I didn't know her, but I knew of her because I'm from North Carolina. She's from North Carolina. And yeah, man, she just killed herself yesterday. Yep, she jumped off a 30-foot building in New York.
Did you see your last post?
Yeah, it was like, may you rest.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was like, ooh, that was deep.
You
like,
look at it and you're like, I never would have known. And then when you look at it
she was just
like,
interviewing Denzel Washington. Like,
it's crazy.
What, like, you would think, like, yo, how bad can your life be? You're interviewing Denzel Washington. Like, you know, you were in a space to you have like, you know, and like you're an attorney. Like not only are you an attorney, but and it's like, man, none of that shit matters. Like
Nope.
literally, like none of it matters. Like if you think more things are gonna make you happy, then like you are gonna be so let down when you realize more things does not take care of the inner work that you have to do to really feel better. Like
Yeah.
it's the inner work, and it's like, man, it's like I feel sorry for people who decide to take their life, because it's like I put up a post today on my Facebook and I was like, look, man, like if life gets so hard where you feel like you want to kill yourself, you know, like you have every permission to come talk to me. I don't have all the answers, but I literally put in the post today, like I don't have all the answers, but I feel like me and you together could figure something else out. Like,
Right.
you know, like, because I don't know if people know they have those outlets, especially people who are put in the position where people are always leaning on them, you know, like they feel like you know, when people always are leaning on you,
Yeah.
like it's almost like it's shameful to even go to somebody about it, because you know the perception they have of you is
Right.
like, and it's like you don't even want to talk about it because you want to obtain this image. You just don't talk about it until now it's too late.
You know, and it's interesting you say that, because that's me, right? That's my position. Is I find people, right? I've just passed like 550,000 followers on TikTok, and it's come to a point where people come to me because I'm their last resort. You know, like I do mental health coaching. You know, you can come to a session super easy. Just schedule a session with me. Like I do free consultations, and people can come to me and talk to me for free. I don't even expect them to buy something afterwards. If you just need to talk to me, you can come talk to me, right? But people, like, I'm the last resort. And if I don't get that right, implications are death, you know? And I've found a place in my life where I've had to understand that I am not the last resort. I am just the perception of the last resort in that person's mind. And you know, what I've tried to do with what I do is very much help people understand responsibility and ownership as much as possible. And that does not negate my ability to help them. It just negates my ability to be that person, that last resort for that person, because they just don't perceive the world in a way that's beneficial for them, right? They perceive the world in, if this person doesn't help me, I'm done. And I've been there, right? My dad was there, and guess what? Didn't work out for him, and it almost didn't work out for me. And it's not a selfish thing. I just really don't think it's a selfish thing. It can be, it certainly can be perceived as one, but I just don't see it as selfish, because they've been trying to ask for someone's help for years. And you can look at the person's history. You can look at these attempts to reach out, but they've never been taught how to reach out. They've never been given the opportunity to have a safe conversation like they can with me, or even with you, right? And it becomes, you know, if I wasn't good at what I do right now in the way that I do it, I would be struggling, because I would be putting so much weight and so much, I think weight is just the best word for it. I'm putting so much weight on my shoulders to say, it has to be me. And I can't.
That's like a God-like responsibility you trying to take on.
Yeah. And I'm not a God, right? Like I will be the last person that tells you I'm a God. I'm good. Like, I don't even think I'm a good man sometimes, right? Like, and I think that's healthy. I know what you mean. Ways, right? Like there's times where I'm like, I know that what I do is good, but I think it's important for me to question whether I am good or not. Because if I don't question if I'm good or not, and I just think I'm good, that's dangerous to me.
Yeah. Because there's no growth. Like, how are you going to, like,
well, who am I unknowingly hurting?
Yeah, that's true.
Right. And so if I think I'm just the golden boy, right, that's a fucking problem in my eyes. Right. I have to have, there's healthy doubt and there's unhealthy doubt. If all you do is doubt, that's unhealthy doubt. If you doubt yourself and you say, I don't think I'm good enough, I think that's okay. It's okay to feel that. It's okay. It's okay to not feel like you're good. And if it's okay to not feel like you are good anymore, now you have to have a reasonable and logical conversation about it, not just a rational one. And I think rationality is really the idea that everything you've ever felt in your life is valid.
Yeah.
Did it come from a place? Absolutely. Right. Someone showed you that that feeling was valid, or you showed you that it was valid. And now it's about, you know, taking the validity away of certain things. Like, am I a bad guy? I don't think so. Right. And so I justify that, and I look at myself and I say, well, I've done a lot of things to make myself a better human being, because I don't think I was a good person a long time ago. And I've worked and worked and worked to get myself to a point of, I'm happy with me. I'm comfortable with me. I do at my absolute best to not hurt people, to not let people down. I'm still going to let people down, but I don't do it intentionally. I don't hurt people intentionally. And so I justify against that doubt actively. And I think that's the mark of a balanced human being, is that they can look at themselves and self-correct and say, I did something wrong. Now I need to do better. And they can self-appreciate at the same time without becoming arrogant. Right.
That's a big one too. Just not always just, I guess, correcting yourself, but also like giving yourself your flowers too. Like, yo, like that was a good thing. Like you did a good job. Like, you know, like really, because it has to be that balance. I think anybody who feels like they have arrived are like completely missing the mark, and they aren't, like, that's not a place you can grow from. If you think you're like everything is good about you, like how are you ever gonna grow? Like it's man, and then the thing about it, I think about this, man, this is probably something I did last week or said last week that today I would never, like, I probably have a different opinion on it. You know, it's just it's always just a place to just grow. And, you know, with the brand, I just want people to come be a part of this brand and feel confident and feel like they can talk to somebody and feel like, okay, like, cool. Like I'm on, like, billionaire is such a big word. And there's not a lot of billionaires in the world. But the brand is just to expose your mind to that, because I want mental health to be a normal thing. I want health to be like just physical health to be a normal thing. I want healthy work ethic to be, because it's a such thing as a bad work ethic too, you know. And you know, it just being like, just like when you put billionaire up there, that just seems so far away that the work and the person you have to become to get there is like literally the most important part. Like that's the most important part. Like that's like the biggest thing, because you're not going to, I don't know how many billionaires there are, but all of them suffer from some type of mental health issue. All of them. They struggle
in their human form, you know?
Yeah.
Like
you know,
we all do.
Yeah. You know, so it's like, so that billionaire is no different from you and I. Like, and that's kind of like the I guess message I'm trying to get across almost. I mean, it's a lot of different messages, because it's just I could just talk about the brand and like just my mindset and everything that just connects to it in so many different ways. But I think that you're right. The being able to assess yourself and say, you know, hey, like, you know, that was bad on me. You know, I probably shouldn't do that again. So
yeah, I love that you're building a brand of that's so like diverse in how you look at what you're actually doing, right? Like, I could look at that brand and say, like, that's got to be about finances, but what you're really trying to build out of it is not just finances, because it's not that simple. And I think that's where we're kind of getting to in, you know, at this point in life and in human history, is we're looking at issues that are remarkably complex, right? I think, and it's funny that we have COVID right now, and the rhetoric that we're looking at is so simplified on both sides. And it's almost a relief to see someone like yourself and myself too, because I'm trying to do the same thing. And we're looking at these issues that we see. We're looking at the issues that that we had to live with. And now we're having the conversations of complexity, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not just talking about finances here. We're not just talking about mental health here. You know, these are big conversations. We've talked about race. We've talked about finances.
Right.
We've talked about mental health. We've talked about a lot of different things in here, military.
Right.
And it's good. It's good to
Yeah.
have people, you know, that are on from two very different walks of life, right? We grew up in two very different places, I promise you, right? I grew up
where are you from?
Wisconsin, right?
Oh, so you're from Wisconsin.
I'm from rural Wisconsin, right? So like my after 6 years old, I basically grew up on a horse ranch farm thing, right? So
are you scared of are you scared about losing Aaron Rodgers, or you think you're gonna keep him?
I'm an Eagles fan, so I don't give a fuck.
You're an Eagles fan? You're from Wisconsin?
My dad was an Eagles fan. That's one thing that I kind of inherited from him and in that story. So I could care less. But my my stepson is a big Packers fan. I don't know how he feels about it, but it is an interesting thing to look at, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we're two different guys from two different places, and yet we still, I think the remarkable thing is that we've come together on a lot of different things through the diversity of our stories. I just think that's awesome, you know?
Yeah, it definitely is. And it just goes to show, like, people are people.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter your social status, your financial status. It doesn't matter your race, age, height, weight. None of that matters. Like, life is happening to everybody right now. Like, no matter what, like, it's, you know, it's just life is happening. So everybody has a story to tell, and everybody, if they want to admit it or not, has something that they could work on when it comes to their mental health. I mean, look at the world we live in, man. World divided. We got Corona. We got it's you know, it's just
problems.
It's crazy. So, you know, everybody they have something to relate to everybody, because we're all human. You know.
Yep. And then you got guys like us just trying to make a difference, you know?
Yeah, trying, like, and I'm not even gonna say trying. I feel like we are. Like, if you're doing this,
I agree.
You know, if you're on this journey, on this path, and you're doing it, and you've helped people and you talk to people, you're doing it. Like, you're not trying, like, you're doing it. It's because it's all about, so this is how I look at it. I can't be everywhere at one time. So what like, the people who joined the membership, I want to build that same mindset into them, and they go take it to their communities, and then those people take it to their communities, and then now I can get a wider reach. And that's why, even like you doing the podcast, and that's why I started the podcast and the YouTube, because it's like my reach. Like, I need bigger reach. Like, I can only depend on X amount of followers to share so much. So it's like I got to get the reach, because it's like what I'm doing, I know can help people, and I know somebody's out there looking for this. Like, you know, somebody's looking for your podcast right now. Like, they need to hear it, or they may stumble upon it. So, you know, just doing the work, just really doing the work. And I'm just grateful that I have something that I'm passionate about, and it's not a money ploy. It's nothing other than, man, damn, I wish I had a me growing up. Like, that's it.
Right.
That's it. So
I love it, man.
Yeah.
Well, let me close out this episode, because I'm sure we could probably talk for 12 hours here
for
if
sure.
we really wanted to. And I'm sure you'll be back. I'm sure we'll probably get hooked up in the future.
For sure, definitely.
Let me. I always ask one question at the end of every episode, just because it's a great question. So let me ask it to you. If there was a message that you could leave the world right now, what would it be?
Oh, man, a message I could leave the world. Think bigger. And I would say think bigger because of the journey you have to get on as a person to get there. Like, that's all it is. Like, our experiences have developed us to this point. So if everybody had an outstretched mind, because you got to think about it, man. When you think big, when you really think big, you know, bigotry doesn't come to mind, racism doesn't come to mind, sexism doesn't come to mind. Like none of those things come to mind when like that, like nobody like your dreams are so big and you're thinking so big that like you can't even spend time on caring about that. Like, you know, like you can't even spend time on that. So that's what I would say. Not think big, but dream big.
I think either one is awesome.
Yeah. So
I think they're both appropriate to, especially your brand. So definitely makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, Tony, this has been awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing where you go and you know where you
likewise.
take your things. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
For sure, definitely. Man, I appreciate you having me on, man. Honestly.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening, I'll make sure that we get all the links that Tony wants to put in the description. Make sure you check him out. Tony, again, I can't wait to talk to you again, hear more about what you're doing. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. If everybody else has listened to this point, thank you very much. And we'll see you next time on the Dylan Experience. So take care. All right.